Welcome back to the Tough Questions for God weekly message. Today I'm going to start a new series, and as you can see on the screen here, it's called The Valley of the Unknown. You know, sometimes life leads us, or God leads us, to a place that is difficult, a place that's uncertain, it's uncomfortable. It's a place where I'm not quite sure how I'm going to like this whole thing. I'm reminded of a college student that I once knew, and this student spent all kinds of time and energy and money and everything studying for a 4-year degree at this particular university. And he told me, he says this was a long journey. It was trying and difficult, and I had to work 2 jobs. He said, just to make ends meet so that I could pay for school and I could pay for, rent and food and gas and all the things that I needed. And he said, this was just one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I remember him also telling me, he says, when anybody asked me, well, what do you want for your birthday or what do you want for Christmas? He said, it was easy. I want money. I want money, money, money. Well, there was this day at the end of this whole 4-year journey was a day that he had looked forward to, but he said was also one of the scariest days of his life. You know what day that was? Graduation day. As he said, all of a sudden everything got very real. Yes, there was a lot of celebration. There was a lot of, let's celebrate because I made it through and I've got my degree and I've got a bright future ahead of me and all that kind of stuff. He said, but on the other side of the coin is I was faced once again with this valley of the unknown. I had no idea what to expect. And in our conversation, we kind of talked. He says, I was in this place where I was using the words or the phrase for now quite a bit. For now, I'm going to be living at home. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and take this job until I get the one that I really want. For now, I'm just trying to get through the day sometimes, and Israel. The nation of Israel, as God led them out of captivity toward the promised land, they went through much of the same. There was reason to celebrate when they were leaving, Egypt. However, when they got out there on the journey into that valley of the unknown, as they're heading toward the promised land, well, guess what? It was tough. It was hard. It was one of these places where they had no idea what to expect the next day. Well, let me ask you, what do you think the Israelites ate in the desert? And I'll encourage you that wherever you're watching this right now, put it in the comments. What did the Israelites eat while they were traveling in the desert? Well, I know this college student friend of mine, you know what he ate? He said, I can remember eating mac and cheese for a week straight. And he says, then to change it up, we went for ramen noodles. Everything was cheap food. And he said, I got to the point where I just hated it. I didn't even want to eat it anymore. It was just nasty. Well, let me ask you, we're talking about being in difficult places. We're kind of looking at, college journey. We're kind of looking at, which is more modern. We're looking back in Christian history and looking at the Israelites as they were traveling toward the promised land, and having to eat things in the desert that, God provided. But what else grows in the desert when you look around? You know what grows in the desert? Complaints, bitterness, misunderstanding, and of course rebellion. Let me read to you from the book of Numbers. All of these are going to be out of chapter 11, and it's kind of a conversation that God is having with Moses. And here's what it says. Then the foreign rabble who were traveling with the Israelites began to crave the good things of Egypt. Now understand that as the Israelites were moving out of Egypt, it wasn't just the Israelites alone. There were some other peoples traveling along with them. And they started to crave the foods that they had in Egypt. And it continues, it says, and the people of Israel also began to complain. Oh, for some meat, they exclaimed. We remember the fish that we used to eat for free in Egypt. And we had all the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and onions and garlic and all the stuff we wanted. But our appetites now are gone. And all we ever see is this one food from God, which you're going to tell me what it is, right? And they were just getting sick of it. Well, let me show you a map here. I'll put it on the screen. This is the route that the Israelites traveled out of Egypt. And as they traveled it, they went way down south, and then they went around. And if you notice on the map, the area of Egypt shows some greenery. That's because it was a lush area. The fertile ground of Egypt and coming out of the rivers there was ideal for growing crops and things. But when you look to the right here, and you look at where the Israelites were traveling, it was just very, very bland, very, very barren. Well, what grows in the valley of the unknown? Well, complaining. Complaining grows in the valley of the unknown when you don't know what's coming around the corner. Even Moses was feeling much of the anxieties here as they were traveling. And the Numbers 11 continues. It says this, "And Moses said to the Lord, 'Why are you treating me so harshly? Have mercy on me. What did I do to deserve the burden of all of these people? Did I give birth to them? Did I bring them into the world? Why did you tell me to carry them in my arms like a mother carries a nursing baby? How can I carry them to the land you swore to give their ancestors? Where am I supposed to get meat for all of these people? They can't keep whining to me, saying, 'Give us meat to eat.' I can't carry all these people by myself. The load is far too heavy." You know, Moses is complaining to God. He's basically saying to God, "You're putting too much on me. You're putting too much on. I can't handle it." And certainly God was testing Moses and was leading him to a place to where he felt, I need help, and he calls out to God in his own way. And when you go to Numbers 11:15, it says this, "Do me a favor and spare me this misery." Moses was basically saying to God, if you love me, just kill me now. Let's just get this over with. But God responds. And then the Lord said to Moses, "Gather before me 70 men who are recognized as elders and leaders of Israel. Bring them to the tabernacle to stand there with you. I will come down and talk to you there, and I will take some of the Spirit that I put upon you, and I will put the Spirit upon them also. They will bear the burden of the people along with you, so you will not have to carry it anymore by yourself." So what else grows in the valley of the unknown? Well, we know complaints do, but also God's provision. You see, God was providing here the thing that was necessary, the thing that was needed. For some reason, God chose to allow Moses to get to this point, but God hadn't forgotten them. He wasn't asleep at the switch or anything like that. God waits to the proper time when Moses was ready to accept the help, when he was ready to trust in God to that next level. God does everything perfectly, and we see that here in this discourse between God and Moses. And it continues, "And say to the people, 'Purify yourselves, for tomorrow you will have meat to eat.' You were whining, and the Lord heard you when you cried, 'Oh, for some meat! We were better off in Egypt.' Now the Lord will give you meat, and you will have it to eat. And it won't be for just a day or two, or 5, or 10, or even 20. You will eat meat for a whole month, until you gag and are sick of it. For you have rejected the Lord who is here among you, and you have been whining to him, saying, 'Why did we ever leave Egypt?'" Have you ever doubted God's word? Have you ever doubted that God is capable of providing the things that you need in your life? Well, God's timing doesn't always work the same way that ours does. And once again, here in this story, we're reading about how God, hears the complaints, and God provides for them, and yet He needs to still teach them to trust Him. Moses responds, "But there are 600,000 foot soldiers here with me, and yet you say I will give them meat to eat for a whole month? Even if we butchered all of our flocks and our herds, would that satisfy them? Even if we caught all of the fish in the sea, would that be enough?" Then the Lord said to Moses, "Has my arm lost its power? Now you will see whether or not my word comes true." You see, Moses started looking at things from a very humanistic, earthly perspective. God, if you're going to feed 600,000 people and all the families and kids and grandmas and grandpas and everybody that's traveling in this congregation of people, meat for a month, even if we slaughtered everything we have. I mean, he was thinking about it only via the terms that he could hold on to, the things that he could see, things that he could understand, the things of the world. He was not looking at things from a very godly or heavenly perspective. God can do whatever He wants. God can do anything. God can resolve the issues in your life and my life whenever He wants to. But we got to remember that God is doing something among us, and that has something to do with learning how to trust Him. So what grows in the valley of the unknown? Well, doubt. God, can you really do this? God, can you really provide for us? You say you're going to do this, and, even if we did all of these things that we are capable of doing, it still wouldn't be enough. You see, Moses forgot that God is almighty and all-powerful. I know many of you are following all of the events that are taking place in the United Methodist Church and the denomination today worldwide, as we're starting to break apart due to many sexuality issues and some other things too. It makes me ask the same questions. It's like we're going through this valley of the unknown as a denomination, as a church. What is it, God, that you want us to learn? What is it that's going to be progressive and positive that comes out of this? How are you going to provide for your church and the faithful believers, and on and on and on and on? How is this going to work? And I'm reminded through this story that we just have to trust in God and do our absolute best to be faithful to Him and faithful to His call on our life. And the scripture story continues. I love this part. But while they were gorging themselves on the meat, while it was still in their mouths, the anger of the Lord blazed against them, and He struck them with a severe plague. You see, what grows in the desert of the unknown, in the valley of the unknown? Well, not only complaints, not only God's provision, not only doubt, but also God's discipline. God will take those opportunities when we are doubting in Him to teach us how to trust Him. Teach us that His arm is not fallen short of anything. He can do all things. We just have to remember that God has our back. God is doing good things in the world, good things in our life, even when it doesn't really look like it. This valley of the unknown is a place where transformative growth is to take place. I want you to remember that. As we look at the hardships that we endure, or even look back in history that the Israelites or whatever endured, we got to remember that God is transforming people's lives. People are coming to faith. People are learning who God is. People are learning how to trust in who God is. And this is a time of training. It's almost like a boot camp, so to speak, in the army. When you learn to trust in who God is, when you learn to trust in who God is, you know what it does? It eliminates complaints. It eliminates doubts, because I don't need to understand how He's going to do it. And as far as the complaints, I don't need to complain to anybody, because I know that at the appropriate time, in the appropriate way, God will provide. God will fulfill. God will sustain me as a human being and us as a people and us as a church. God is doing a great work here. We just don't always see it. But we have to remember that we need to stay faithful to him and to trust in what he's doing. Friends, I want you to think about all that this week as we conclude here with this first in a series, The Valley of the Unknown. We're going to be looking at those places that challenge us, tremendously challenge us in our walk of faith. So I want you to share this with others, put it on your timelines. Don't forget to respond to me and let me know what it is that the Israelites ate while they were traveling through the desert. And then also share this with others. And hopefully we'll see you and your friends and family here next week. Don't forget the toughquestionsforgod.org website. Is a place with lots of good resources. There is a Tough Questions for God daily devotion. It usually takes about 30 to 60 seconds. It's just a great way to start off your day. You'll find that on the website also. Thanks, and God bless, and I'll see you next week. Or I'll see you tomorrow for the devotion. Bye.